Invited to become a team of Awakening Europe, which is a wonderful ministry led by a really close friend of Susan mine, Ben Fitzgerald. I was invited to go to Nuremberg to the first one in 2015 and to preach in a stadium. And I knew what to preach. I knew what to preach because my father had been in Germany 70 years before that event, clearing out the bomb-making equipment of Germany. I knew what I was going to preach. I'm going to drop a different bomb on Germany, a bomb of the Father's love in the fatherland. And what was extraordinary for me was that I didn't have to think about what to preach. You know, it's pretty scary in some respects to think you're going to walk in front of 26,000 people for the first time in your life and preach in a stadium. But God had got me ready. He wastes nothing. The second Awakening Europe was equally extraordinary because it was held in Stockholm, Sweden. Remember I told you I'm a hostage negotiator trainer? Stockholm means something. Stockholm Syndrome. And what that actually means is that the victims of a hostage taker become too closely connected to the perpetrator. I knew what to preach. Stockholm, you've become too closely associated with our enemy, the devil. You need to stand up for principles of purity and the power of the gospel. I knew what to preach. He wastes nothing. He gets you ready. The third Awakening Europe, when I heard that it was in Prague, I could not believe it. Why could I not believe it? Because it's unbelievably where Sue's mother was born. I knew what to preach. Your daughters are carried in our arms, and I was prepared. 3 events that could have been pretty scary and intimidating. God had got me ready because he wastes nothing. He gets you ready. They're details of my life. You will have details of your life. I take note of things. I scribble down dates. I remember stuff because I'm looking for this, because it's become the way I view life. He wastes nothing. He gets you ready. I was standing in Bethel Church one Sunday morning just before we moved back to Europe. And I deliberately say Europe. You might think I moved back to England. I did, but England's part of Europe. And I know there was some Brexit thing that went on, but I've had a look at this. There are 7 continents, is that correct? Okay? So I belong to one continent, and so do you. I've checked this. I'm not near to Africa. I'm not near to North America. I'm not near to South America. I'm not near to Asia. I'm not near to Australasia. And I'm not really interested in Antarctic. That only leaves Europe, so I'm a European, okay? It's just the way I worked it out, and that's the continent that I'm believing we will see in revival in our lifetime. So when I say we came back to Europe, I'm serious about this. It's Europe, okay? I was standing in church, and I knew that I was about to lead an altar call. And I've been around some of the crazy evangelists. You know, they've got these incredible altar calls of how they were saved in a prison cell, a drug den. They were in the gutter of their life. I wasn't. And I'm standing in worship, and God starts having a conversation with me. He asks me questions. If this ever happens to you, just know this. It's not because he doesn't know the answer. It's because he wants you to be reminded of what the answer is. He said to me, Paul, what was your first career? Well, God, you know that. I was a nurse. What was your favorite day as a nurse? The best day? Oh, I know that. That was October the 31st, 1982. My last day as a nurse when Terry Thompson was brought in to my intensive care unit, flatline on the ECG. Dead, effectively. And I had the privilege of resuscitating him, and I got to walk into the side room and tell his wife, Barbara. I know I'm weird. I remember their names. But what you need to know is that Terry ended up working for me years later as a junior governor in the prison service. And I got to tell Barbara, I have good news for you. Your husband's not dead. He's alive. God asked me another question. He said, what was your second career, Paul? As a prison governor. What was your favorite day as a prison governor? Oh, that's easy. It was the day when I was working in Belmarsh Prison. And I walked into a cell, and I was able to tell a young man who was dying of AIDS, who had one dream before he died: I want to go home to celebrate my son's 6th birthday. And at the time, we had a son, very similar age. And I petitioned for that young man to get what's called the Royal Prerogative of Mercy, which is literally that. The Queen signs the release. And I got to go into his cell and tell him, you're not a prisoner anymore. You're a free man. And then I realized I have my altar call. Because I get to tell people, you don't have to be dead but alive. You don't have to be a prisoner but free. He wastes nothing. I'm talking nothing. He wastes nothing. He gets you ready. And finally, as we were making our final decision to move back, we sat in my mother's house with a bag of books that Sue's mother had left for us. And we were just making our absolute final decision. And we opened this bag of books, and on the top of that bag of books was a book that many of you will know, Tortured for Christ, written by Richard Wurmbrand. It was a scrappy first edition. It was the foreword, though, was written by Sue's grandfather, the man who gave me my original advice. The foreword was written by Stuart Harris. It was signed by Richard Wurmbrand and given to her grandfather. And now it's in our hands. And we said, we're going home. This is our inheritance. We're going to get it back. He wastes nothing. And I could give you probably 50 more examples. But I want to encourage you. Change the way you view your life. He wastes nothing. I had some boring times working in prison. People make it sound glamorous. Paul was a prison governor. Yeah, I also trained in riot control. Look at me. I wasn't designed for that stuff. I've rolled around on the floor with prisoners. I've done boring long night shifts. I've done a whole bunch of things that weren't fun, but I have good news. He wastes nothing. He gets you ready. And then there's two other principles that I've written them up here. You can scribble down the verses. The first is this: he redeems the lows. He redeems. He puts value in seasons in your life that you devalued. He redeems them. That verse, Joel 2:25, he redeems the years the locusts have eaten. And it is a principle for him. You see, here's what God does. He touches trash and makes it treasure. That's what he does. The incredible thing is, he's so good at it that people think, like, this is the classic. People think God sent cancer to teach us a lesson. People look at it. Why? Because often God uses it so incredibly that they think he must have sent it. He doesn't need to send it. He just looks around and goes, I'm going to touch that and make it beautiful. See, he doesn't send cancer to teach people a lesson. He sent Jesus to teach cancer a lesson. That's what he does. He redeems every low point of your life. He will put value back into something. We have a very good friend, Zoe Clark Coates. Sometimes some of you will have seen her on the red sofa, as she calls it, on BBC Breakfast. She has a ministry called Saying Goodbye, and she ministers to people all over the world, A-listers who lose babies through miscarriage, etc., etc. She's incredible. You see, what God's done with her is he wastes nothing. He gets her ready. There was the tragedy of 8 babies, 8 babies she lost. And now she ministers all over the world because God redeems low points. He just does. And he touches stuff. He's actually so good at this. One of the biggest fears in our world today that I've noticed is choice anxiety. People are afraid of making a wrong choice. But the incredible thing with God is that if you're in him and you make the wrong choice, you may never know because he'll touch it and make it beautiful. It's just the way he is. So he redeems the lows, but he also, as I put it down there, he repeats the highs, which is dangerous in a drug kind of culture world that we live in. But you know what I'm saying, the high points. He repeats them. He repeats your victories. He repeats your testimonies. It's his nature. Revelation 19:10, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. What the good stuff that God has done in you and through you, you have a desire, and he does, to do it again. Now, when you start putting these together and you start see, waste nothing. He gets me ready. He redeems the low points in my life. Like he's done with you, the song you just sung. I don't know how long you're married. I think you said 15 years, I think you might have said. 25. How could you have been married 25 years? That doesn't seem right. Whatever. Okay. He takes 25 years and he puts a song in your heart and you sing it and other people get a breakthrough. Because he wastes nothing. He gets you ready. He's not overlooking the pain, but he looks at it and goes, I'm not wasting that. I'm going to reinvest it. So you start putting these things together. He wastes nothing. He redeems the lows. He puts value in something that you thought didn't have value. He takes the high points of your life and he repeats them. And here's what it sums up to is this. He wants you to believe your story. Hebrews 11:21 says, Jacob leaned on his staff and worshipped. That staff, it wasn't just a thin stick, all right? It was a decent staff. You got some staffs in your line of ministry, I bet, haven't you? I bet have you got a good staff, a good solid one? Jacob's staff would have been marked with all the great events of his life. In other words, the night he wrestled with the angel, it had a mark there, perhaps scratched in a date. When children are born, the great victories. And when it says he leaned on his staff, it means this might not work, but he could put his whole weight on his staff. He could lean on it. He could trust it. You see, what he wants us to do is to be able to lean on our story, put our weight on our story. And you know what happens? That's where your authority comes from. Like Sue was up here this morning and she's saying, we went through infertility and we got healed, and she's going, I can lean on that. And I can lean on it for you. Because that's where my authority comes from. Because I've got a mark on my staff that says God came through for me. I can put the whole weight of my life. See, he wants you to believe your story, to trust your story, to rely on your story, to depend on your story. This isn't about you believing my story. I don't care if you're wowed or not by my story. I don't care if you sit there and go, gosh, that was amazing how God weaved it. It is amazing, but I'm not bothered about you believing that or trusting that. I want you to believe yours. I want you to be able to lean on your story and go, yeah, he came through. Sue and I are able to look at each other and go, he's never let us down before. It feels a bit scary right now. We're not quite sure what's going on, but he's never let us down before. I see what testimony we can remember that we can share with each other. The day I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, we went for a walk and we just told each other stories. We just reminded ourselves of when he came through for us, because we can believe our story. I don't know which one of those stands out the most to you, but I just want to encourage you to look through a new lens for your life, to start to take note of details, to review your story, and to believe and declare over yourself, he wastes nothing. He's got me ready. And I look back and some of the detail, I'd forgotten some of this stuff, and then I remember, I see something he's doing, go, oh yeah, he got me ready. I want to encourage you. He redeems the low points of your life. He redeems the years the locusts have eaten. In other words, you thought it was wasted, but he'll put value back in it, and he'll use it for his kingdom and his glory. I encourage you. He loves repeating victories. It's his nature, and he put it in you. I guarantee you this, if you were saved from a lifestyle of drug addiction, we have a very, very good friend, Andrew Cannon. 12 years ago, he was living on the streets of Liverpool, homeless, drug addict, cocaine addict, alcoholic, suicidal, depressed. Today, 2 weeks ago, I did a school of evangelism with him. I love that. I just love that. But I'll guarantee you this, if that's your testimony is anything like that, you will want this. Every person you walk past, you want them to get the same breakthrough that you had. It's just in you, because God put it in you. He loves repeating his testimonies and his victories. And finally, I want to encourage you to believe your story, which means you need to know your story. Tell people your story. Not just your salvation story, your story of how God has worked through your life and in your life so that you can lean on it. You can trust it. You can put the whole weight of your life on it. Buy a staff if you want to and mark on it, scribble on it the great dates of your life, because it's where your authority comes from. And when you know that, when you believe your story, you can give it away. I want to invite you to stand. I just want to pray this over you. And although it's a phrase that I use, he wastes nothing, he gets you ready, which is quite fun. I preached this a month or so ago. There's a young man there, he said, can you write that in your handwriting in the shape of a cross for me? I said, yeah, sure, I can do that. He said, I want to have it tattooed on my hand. So I took a little bit of time on it, and I created a font so that all the letters were even. So I created a font of my handwriting. He's got it tattooed on his hand. You waste nothing, he gets you ready. Now, that is not a requirement, okay? It's not a requirement. But I want you to tattoo it on your heart. That's what I want you to do. I want you to mark your heart with this truth. He wastes nothing, he gets you ready. It's a great declaration. It's like Joel Osteen, Sue was saying earlier, his declaration. This is a great declaration. I'm not really a routine declaration person. My friend Steve Backlund, he has 24 a day or something. He carries a clicker of every time he's declared something. I'm not that guy. But I say this over myself all the time. He wastes nothing. He gets you ready. So why don't you say it with me as we close? After 3. 1, 2, 3. He wastes nothing. He gets you ready. Let's try it again. He wastes nothing. He gets you ready. All right, now put your hand on your heart. Father, I declare over everyone here that they will live their lives through this lens. The faith to believe that he will not waste anything. You, our Heavenly Father, will not waste anything. Any aspect of our lives, our family line, the highs, the lows, the disappointments, the victories, the unusual circumstances, that you will not waste anything. So, Father, I bless everyone listening to this, that this truth will go with them, that any area of their life that they feel is wasted, lost, that you will redeem it. You will put value back in it. That you will repeat the victories of our lives, and we will live to see them repeated. And above all, that we will be able to stand and lean on our staff and worship you because we believe, trust, rely on, have faith in, can put our whole weight on our story, our history with you. So, Father, bless everyone listening to this, and I declare it's true. He will not waste anything, and he will get you ready for everything that he has planned for you in Jesus' name. Amen.